Welcome, one and all, to another episode of Pacific 4 and 4 Episode Reviews. I am your host, Mike, and tonight, on this Friday, I'm going to be talking about the fifth episode of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, The Jedi. Now, what do I have to say about The Jedi? What do I have to say about seeing some familiar faces in this episode? Some familiar faces from movies that many people have seen: Clerks 2, The Terminator, Tombstone, and several other movies that we've seen these particular actors or actresses in. I oh, excuse me. I Am Legend comes to mind, and The Pursuit of Happiness comes to mind too. And what am I talking about? Well, in this episode, we see Rosario Dawson and Michael Behan. Michael Behan, who was in the Terminator movie as Kyle Reese. He was also in Aliens, and he was also Johnny Ringo in Tombstone. I don't know why I was pausing so long there. It's like, come on, Mike. You know him from Tombstone. You've watched that movie so many times, you could practically quote it verbatim. But anyways, this episode saw Michael Biehn and Rosario Dawson guest star, and for Rosario Dawson, she appeared as a character that she'd been trying to audition for quite a while, from what I've read. And that character comes from the animated series Star Wars: The Clone Wars. The character also appeared in Star Wars Rebels. That would be Anakin Skywalker's Padawan, Ahsoka Tano. So we see Ahsoka Tano in this episode in this planet. Is Corvus, the planet that Bo-Katan sent our Mandalorian friend Din Djarin to seek training for the child. And we see her on this smoky planet. Trees are all burnt out. It's a burned out planet. There's a wall. To me, it almost looked like a compound at first, until they described it as a village in the episode. And we see her white lightsabers taking down these guards that are patrolling the area, because apparently she's been causing a little bit of trouble for these guys, because what's going on behind those walls isn't on the up and up. There's a magistrate there, and she wants to get rid of Ahsoka Tano and have control of this area. But that's not the entire story. But Ahsoka is there to save the villagers, and she gives this magistrate an ultimatum to give her some information that she being Ahsoka Tano, is seeking, that the magistrate knows all well enough about. So we see Mando and the child on the Razor Crest. They're on their way to Corvus, and the child is told by Mando to sit in his seat, and we see the child, get his eye on the knob on the thruster control of the Razor Crest. And of course, Mando wants him in his seat because they're about to make their landing approach onto the planet. So, long story short, is little baby Yoda uses his force abilities to remove the knob from the control, and Mando tells him, "I already told you, this isn't a toy." So next we see Mando and Baby Yoda aboard the Razor Crest. They land on to the planet. They go out, and like I said, it's a smoky, barren planet, burnt trees. There is some life out there, but it's definitely got that samurai feel as far as the lighting is concerned. That this planet has been through hell type of feel to it. And Mando makes his way with Baby Yoda to this village. He speaks to Michael Biehn, and Michael Biehn says that judging by his armor, he looks like a hunter, and he is permitted into this village. Mando looks around, tries to speak to a vendor, tries to speak to a villager, and is told that he shouldn't be speaking to anybody. And then these two guards come up to Mando and tell him that the magistrate wants to see him. So Mando meets with the magistrate, who has a staff of pure Beskar. And she tells Mando about this Jedi who's been causing trouble and says that she needs to be eliminated, and hires Mando for the job. So Mando accepts the job, but he's going to be getting that Beskar staff as his reward. So he leaves the village with Baby Yoda, and before he even leaves, Michael Biehn looks at him and says, "What is that?" And he's referring to the child. And the Mando says, "A good luck charm." Excuse me, a good luck charm. And Michael Biehn says, "You're gonna need it." So we see Mando going into the forest, or at least what remains of the forest. Walking over fallen trees, walking into the dense smoke, and he's looking around. He sits down little Baby Yoda on a piece of rock, and he's looking around through his scope when all of a sudden he's attacked, and he's being attacked by Ahsoka Tano. He uses his flame torch to try to back her off. She moves away, and then he uses grapple and ties her up. Well, with Ahsoka being a Jedi, she's able to leap over a tree and get the rope right onto the limb of a tree. And long story short, she's able to get out of the rope. And she wields her two lightsabers. And Mando says, "Ahsoka Tano, I've been sent here by Bo-Katan. She said you could help me." So next we see Ahsoka and Mando and the child. And Ahsoka is trying to gauge his force abilities. And they're doing some meditation. And during that meditation, Ahsoka and the baby are able to communicate with one another. We come to learn when she picks up the child along with the lantern that she was had because it was getting dark. And she goes to Mando and informs him that the child has a name, and it's Grogu. So we now know the name of the child. It's not little Baby Yoda. It's not the child. It's Grogu. And Grogu has, fear because his backstory is that he was trained by many Jedi Masters, and then once the Republic fell, he was hidden inside the temple, and at some point, somebody found him, and his memory went dark. We also come to learn that little Baby Yoda is treading toward the dark side because of his anger. Uh, Soka is asked if she will train him. She says she will not train him because she's seen this before, and she's referring to her own Jedi Master, Anakin Skywalker, who we all know later became the Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader. So she doesn't want to risk training him because he is angry just like Anakin was. And even though his midichlorian count is high, you know, she doesn't want to repeat the same fate as Anakin. and she says so. So Mando does tell her that he was sent to kill her by the magistrate, and Mando and Ahsoka come up with a plan to go back to the village, team up, and take out the magistrate and free the village. So first we see Ahsoka approaching the village again, and by the time they realize that it's her, it's too late because she's already leapt up to this high balcony area and taken out several guards using her lightsabers, deflecting laser blasts, and using her force abilities, and even destroys a gun that they're using to alert the rest of the village that somebody's approaching, mainly to alert the magistrate. So she comes, and she, being Ahsoka, makes her way through, and just when it looks like one of the villagers who being basically posted on this post and tortured in front of this gate where the magistrate is, then Mando comes and helps out. He takes out a few of the guards, a few guards that are actually droids. Ahsoka confronts the magistrate, and they have a duel. And during this duel, Ahsoka loses her lightsaber, at least one of her two lightsabers, but is still able to fight off the magistrate. And we come to find out the information that Ahsoka is seeking. Ahsoka wants to know the location of Grand Admiral Thrawn. And for those of you familiar with the character of Grand Admiral Thrawn, he was a character introduced in the expanded universe, and then he was later adapted for Star Wars Rebels. And last that character was seen was with the character of Ezra Bridger, and they were on a Star Destroyer, going who knows where. But that was the information Ahsoka was seeking. She wants to know the location of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Maybe she's going to look for Ezra. Maybe she wants to stop what does remain of the Empire from even having a chance of reforming. But long story short, the magistrate is killed. Ahsoka gets the Beskar staff, and Mando, thanks to the help of a villager that he met earlier, who told him he shouldn't be talking to anybody, shoots a droid that was coming up on the roof to shoot Mando, and they manage to free the villagers so that they had their freedom once again. And after all is said and done, Mando gets the Beskar staff, Ahsoka is with the villagers, and Mando is going back to the Razor Crest so he can get little baby Yoda to say goodbye to Ahsoka. Well, by the time Mando gets to the Razor Crest, little baby Yoda is sound asleep. He wakes the little guy up. I know, Gorgu. Gorgu. I gotta get used to calling him Gorgu. But he wakes him up from a deep sleep. Ahsoka comes to the ship and says to him that she cannot train him. And Mando says, but we had a deal. She said, I can't train him. And she tells him about a Jedi temple, the ruins of a Jedi temple on Thrask, and says, take him there and let him make his own decision, whether he wants to be with the Force or let it go. So, what did I think of this episode? I thought it was a very good episode. And I did see that Dave Filoni, who helped create the character of Ahsoka Tano along with George Lucas, did write and direct this episode. So this was the second episode of The Mandalorian that he directed, and I thought it was pretty good. I was interested in seeing how they were going to adapt yet another character from an animated series to live action, and I thought Rosario Dawson did a great job as the character. And maybe that's because I've seen Rosario Dawson in other things, so I know how well she can act. So, her acting ability, it's shown that she's a great actor. And, seeing Michael Behan and what ends up happening to him in this episode, even though I didn't say it, if anybody's seen Tombstone where he's having that duel with Doc Holliday when he's Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday, who's played by Val Kilmer, and he's Johnny Ringo, and he says, "I didn't think you'd show up. I'm your Huckleberry." And then he says to Doc, "Fight's not with you, Holliday. I beg to differ, sir. We started a game we never got to finish. Play for blood, remember?" And then, Johnny Ringo says, "I was just fooled." And then Doc Holliday says, "I wasn't." And then, of course, you hear Johnny Ringo say, "All right, Lunga, let's do it." So, they're having their duel. And then, Doc pulls out his gun, shoots Johnny Ringo, and goes, "Come on, come on." And of course, Johnny Ringo's shot in the head, and he's stumbling and, of course, dying because he's shot right in the head, right in the brain. And he falls to his death. And of course, Doc says, "You ain't no Daisy. You ain't no Daisy at all." That's what it reminded me. All I was expecting was to see someone come up and man to go, "I'm afraid the strain was more than he could bear." All right, so maybe I've watched Tombstone a little too much, but what can I say? I love that movie. And maybe I'll do an episode of Pacific 414 movie review just on Tombstone. Why not? But anyways, I thought this was a great episode. I really did enjoy it. It did remind me of some of the samurai films that I've seen, especially with the way it was shot and, just how dark it was. And I know some people may not like that effect, but I thought for this story to show how devastated this planet was, because we did learn that the magistrate in this episode, lost her people and she joined the Empire and basically took all the resources that she could from other planets to build the Imperial Starfleet. So we did get a little backstory on that. So